Wagwan. You might be wondering, why am I here? And more importantly, why am I making this video again? Ultimately, the answer that I have for you is as simple as I fucked up. As you might be hearing it right now, there's music being played in the background for this, even though I said that there wouldn't be, but that's simply just to cover up the static that comes from my microphone. The reason why we're here is because of two things. Number one, yesterday when I recorded the video for the curious case of Chameleon Quinn, I did not check the audio levels 5 times, as I've been checking it now, OCDly, for the last hour, for what was supposed to already be out now, this correction and this abridging of my notes from yesterday. In that video, which goes on for an extensive 50 minutes, I explain and I lay out the timeline of events and actions taken by one Chelsea Van Valkenburg, better known as the former adult model Deviant Locke, also known as the eternal victim and champion queen of manipulation, Zoe Quinn, having used her relationship with Aaron Yongi and her relationship with Alex Walker during their respective time periods to increase her notability in her ascent towards, I guess you could say, top shillhood in the high year of the controversies launched around her and her behavior. Yesterday, because that video is basically not to my standards, this is going to stand instead as it's abridging. The links for everything will still be listed below, and you will still be able to view it. It will be unlisted, and the link to it will be here on this video. I am going to enlist it because eventually in the future I'm going to remake the entire thing proper, with everything that we have as a deluxe edition. The final mix, if you would. So, if you wish to watch it in its entirety, if you wish to stand and sit and hear me over the music, if you can be able to hear me at all, that will be there for you to do. If you instead prefer to just hear the summary rundown of it, and the going over of the additional information, as released by the Post-Millennial in their new article, going over the tweets and the private messages of Alex Walker before his death, then I invite you to stay here, because I will be brief. Again, all links towards every single additional material, including the tweets in question that were made by me, with the additional material so it can be downloaded by you, will be listed below. The entire description itself will be the same tags and same everything, so you're not missing out on anything if you don't go watch it. Without further ado, to really start off with what is in the video, it started off with me reading my original thread. The thread that I wrote about her, and the statements that I made concerning how she was using and was defending Antifa during their time period when they had attacked Andy Ngo in Portland. It was in that thread that I said that the reasons people do not like Zoe Quinn, why they don't like Chelsea, is because she is, by definition and by modus operandi, a liar, a thief, and a shill. And every person knows it. With the details and in the information that have come out recently, in totaling the testimony given by the photographer, who she had employed to come to her place in, I believe the city was Albany, New York, that photographer revealed her story, which corroborated the evidence that I have on both her time on Hell Dump and the correlating evidence that shows that while she was dating Hualca, and this being this after enduring she was dating Hualca, which would start in the time period of March 2011 and onwards, and during this time period where she was still a model, where she claimed that she had her tit licked, and she's told the story that she gave to the photographer about how in every single business and every single job she's just being harassed. All the correlating evidence along with this, her testimony, Zoe's own tweets, and the correlating tweets from the time period where she admits that she had been on Helldump. All of these tweets and all of this information, including the information as picked out by the Millennial, which we all have access to, and this additional article by the Post-Millennial, reveals what I already was detailing and was very, very slyly trying to imply, which is Zoe Quinn, Deviant Locke, Chelsea Van Valkenburg, isn't a concerted fucking liar. She's not just a concerted fucking liar. She's a person who has studied the blade of cancel culture. During her time with Alex Hawalka, she researched, reviewed, and perfected the method that she witnessed on Something Awful to use it in her actual career. Her entire method is like this, right? Chelsea's tactic requires and involves using herself and her body and her business as a honeypot. Anyone she involves herself with in a business sense and in a business capacity, for example, the photographer, as soon as she gets what she wants out of the photographer, she will do everything in her power to bury any and all evidence of it ever having occurred. For example, when the photographer arrived there in Albany, she paid out of her own pocket for her own food, for the additional housing, which was supposed to have been supplied by Zoe, which was supposed to be a hotel, which ended up being her crashing in their guest room while she was there with Zoe, her then boyfriend, and the roommate, who came up later in her story as having been supposedly a manipulative bitch, that after they had taken all these photos, one of the sets being from the arcade, another set having been out in the forest, and then a third set that she had canceled because Zoe didn't prepare anything at all. Zoe would go on to then attempt to tell all the models on the affiliated website that the model had showed her mutilated photos of botched labiaplasty surgery. This, on top of the evidence that she had with her emails confirming where Zoe Quinn admits herself, or at least very, very heavily asserts, that she has murdered a man in self-defense. We're not sure, because the actual correlating evidence from her actual page says that she was dancing at a club and she punched a man who licked her tit. While in the email to the photographer, she very well lambasts the lady, because she tells her and is enforcing on her that she needs to feel sorry for her and how she was abused and aggressed in a situation where she claims she was being raped, and if she had not fought back and possibly killed him, that it would have led to her being killed by him after he was done with her. This follows together and follows through with Gianni's revelation that Zoe Quinn was abusive to him. And this also follows through with Hawalka's own statement from Facebook, where he confirms in his mind that he is terrified of what's going to happen to him in the industry. He doesn't use her name in there, but it's very well shown inside of the private messages that he did indeed fear this behavior and action from Zoe. Let me get it queued up here so we can go over it. This is actually fire. Why is this taking so long to load? There we go. Alright, so as it's archived in my web recorder account, the article from the Post Millennial. Yesterday, well, the day before, and a couple of days earlier, they broke the story on how her own tweets were able to factually prove that when she lied and said that she was being held against her will in Winnipeg, where Alec lived, that instead she had been basically trying to put together an art installation. The art installation fell through, and she basically was using Alec to get help developing her game, as her tweets show. If you want to see that article, it can be found in the links to the description of the video. Also, this can be seen if you look at the video that will probably be linked in this iBar as it was in the information bar on the other video as well. Namely the one by Chameleon. It also continues and also includes that information. But in here, it has Alec Kowalka's actual messages. I'm not going to read all of the text. You can pause it if you need time to read it. But let's read his actual information from his @InfiniteAmmo account. It's been interesting. I've been trying to talk to friends about it for a couple of years. If talking about her doing this being terrible ruins my career, I don't want a career in this industry. Yeah, I'm really confused by the people who are angry about this being shared. Wonder what dude thought before sharing it. I thought about sharing my story with her a few times, but I was always scared to. I think he was completely emotionally wrecked and angry, but it doesn't change what she did, in my opinion. Your story would give credence to his, but it's a risky move. I totally understand. This is in reference to a fellow developer having expressed and exchanged messages in 2014 with him. And I believe, yes, they do reference it here. Utilizing resurfaced tweets and audio, the Post Millennial released a comprehensive rebuttal of Quinn's statement detailing the abuse Quinn alleged suffering while living with Kowalka in 2012. The article, which was released on the 8th, outlined a number of discrepancies and outright fabrications presented in her 28th statement. As a likely result, the Post Millennial was subjected to a DDoS attack, which attempted to shut down access to the website. Since the publication of the article, more information has resurfaced or surfaced to contradict the statement. Many speculate may have led Kowalka to take his life. Speaking to the Post Millennial anonymously due to fears of backlash, a fellow developer of Kowalka has provided dozens of message exchanges in 2014 with Kowalka speaking about his experience with Quinn. The authenticity of these messages have been verified. So yes, they do reference it. She tried to fucking take down the website. Didn't work. So now they're just going to expose her fully. So, you know, it is what it is. In the chat, Kowalka said he was very wary of making Quinn angry and often had looked for solutions that wouldn't upset his former partner. Another time we went out to this Yuri's night thing. She just got wasted and was hitting on all kinds of people. It was super new to me. People I was in a relationship with being super flirty with other people. I was trying not to be judgmental. She kept going to the bathroom and saying a girl there was hitting on her, and after like 4 or 5 times she was like, you just want to go make out with her? Because if you really want to, go for it. And she did this whole no, I only want to be with you, blah blah, and then kept going to the bathroom. Later she had a huge breakdown about how everyone hits on her and it's so unfair and evil, etc. And I just really wanted to say maybe don't be as flirty, but then I knew that I knew that this would be something that she freaked out over. God damn it, I hate being dyslexic. So instead, I said maybe there's something that we can do together to avoid this situation. And she freaked out at me anyways, got really angry at me, and said I was discounting her personal experience. In no way was I doing that. I was quite open to listening and trying to understand her personal experience. God, there are some genuine instances of victim blaming. Telling someone don't put out signals if you don't want to get hit on isn't one. In direct contrast to Quinn's statement, Kowalka paints a very different picture of their time together in Winnipeg, which is during the time period where she was lying and saying that she didn't have a way out, which was correlated. Suggesting that despite problems present in the relationship, he had been so infatuated with her that he had offered to pay for couples counseling to keep their relationship healthy. So, when we first started being a thing, she came to Winnipeg and he was living there at the time. She's always in a bad situation, something bad always happened, etc., etc. Right off the bat, I was like so in love with her and so happy to be so happy with the relationship that I suggested we go to couples counseling. As a like, hey, this is really great. Let's keep it that way by having a neutral third party having a neutral third party around to talk about stuff. That's weirdly worded. And I offered to pay for it, and whenever cause I offered to pay for it and whatever because I knew she was broke. And her response to that, well, if you think you need that, and I was like, no, this would be for both of us to talk about whatever's going on. And her reply was, well, if you think you need to do that. Walka also expressed that he felt viewing what would have been the Gamergate controversy as an issue of simple sexism were mistaken, having first-hand experience with Quinn that contradicted the very public narrative. But this is a clear case where I know people aren't really looking at it in detail, because I was there. In a very similar situation, and it's like, yeah, she's got serious issues and should be working on them if she wants respect. Like, if you don't own your shit, and it's not easy to own your shit. But that would be an amazing step she could take. The thing is, no matter where she goes, abuse follows her. She's always the victim, never the perpetrator, and that's suspicious at best. So far, I've only seen her run into other messed up situations. However, Hawalka's expressions of dissatisfaction with his past relationship predates Quinn's 2014 controversies, eliminating the possibility that the conversation stemmed from a bitterness towards Quinn's public stance or a need to sneakily cover his own abusive past. Yeah. In simpler terms, Hawalka has no motive to mischaracterize the relationship he had with Quinn. His claims in 2013 are consistent with the newly uncovered claims. And they show an archive featuring a person, Sophie H., himself, and someone else entirely. He had a pretty good sense of humor. And more telling, Hawalka is continuously apologetic towards the feminist cause, at multiple points pointing out that he himself is a feminist, decrying sexism and lamenting the way the 2014 controversy was polarized by his ideological interest groups. It's sick that MRA types latch onto this stuff and use it as more sexism fuel, yeah, but it's being perceived by feminists one way and MRA douchebags another way. Or I get accused of being a secret feminist when I'm like, no, wait, that's a bit too far there, bros. Like, both parties are just taking what they need to validate their positions. I hate polarized groups so much. I think people like Zoe are unfortunately going to create more sexism. Women are going to be seen as liabilities more and more. I don't know, because it's clearly not because she's a woman, it's because she's a shitty person.
From beyond the grave! From beyond the grave!
These messages corroborate Quinn's own assertion that Hawalka was concerned about the challenges facing women in the gaming industry, and that it was his primary motivation for interacting with Quinn's tweets prior to their connecting through Twitter direct messages in 2012. As stated in our September 8th exclusive, this new evidence is not completely exculpatory. It does not provide a complete picture of what happened between Zoe Quinn and Alex Hawalka during their time when they were living together in Winnipeg in 2012. It does, however, continue to call into question the credibility of the allegations made by Quinn against Hawalka, and more importantly, demonstrates the tragic logic of guilty before proven innocent. The post-millennial reached out to Zoe Quinn, but was unable to contact Quinn for comment at this time. Which should be expected, because that bitch is on the run. In addition to this goes along with what I revealed yesterday. Namely that, in addition to this, Zoe Quinn basically lied about everything. All of her tweets from this time period shows that, where she claims that Alex Hawalka was supposedly abusive and was supposedly controlling her and was keeping her basically as a sex slave in his domicile, they were actually living in, basically by Alex's own words here, in a form of wedded bliss of sorts, where he's just happy to be there and they're just working together on the project that he was working on. The same project that she claims she was not getting support and help controlling and using at the time. This is what led me to believe and to suggest my opinion of her tactic, which I said earlier, but I'll repeat again here. Zoe Quinn was never actually, quote-unquote, abused the way that she claims she was in the games industry. She has been perfecting what she perfected back in 2007, when she was still a adult model on a alternatives website. She knows that she can pretend to be a victim and act as though she's being victimized by people. And she knows this because she's seen it work. She used the photographer, the female photographer, as a lead-in example. And then, after perfecting that, she decided to start using that as a standard. So she went from, I'm going to lie about this woman to these models. It went to, I'm going to lie to people about these guys to an entire industry. It's a honeypot. She finds guys that can benefit her. People who can get her what she wants, get her what she needs, or are able to supply her a service that she requires. She honeypots them, fucks their brains out like a manic pixie dream girl, fulfills all of their wishes and desires because she lets them, and then, basically, in a Faustian deal, later on, when she's losing out on money, like I had alluded to many times before when I joked about it, but it's so totally not a joke, she would go through her Rolodex of people's names, find a guy who she's fucked before, one very publicly so, one that she's talked about it, in that Kick Vic style that we've all become familiar with, if you've been paying attention to the Victor Monona case, because this is usually when I'd bring it up. She would tweet out in the same style that Monica Jean Rial and Jamie Marchi and Amanda Winley and all these other voice actresses that currently are in desperate need of getting fired by Toei proper. She tweeted out in ways that they tweeted out, with happies and smileys and kissy faces. And when it became politically expedient and financially lucrative to do so, she destroyed their entire public persona and appearance, using not just cancel culture, but hell dump style cancel culture. Not just, this man abused me, this man wronged me. No, she destroyed these people by saying this monster has been manipulating me. And if I have my story, what else do you know that they're doing? And she's been using this over and over and over again. Erin Gianni's statements about how abusive she was actually just one piece of the puzzle. The photographer coming forward, and now Alex, I guess you could say this being Alex's roundabout truth, in the most Ace Attorney style possible. This statement made by him is possibly the best and the closest we could possibly get to understanding him and also understanding her as a whole and in total. Because with this information, with the information from the post-millennial, and with the information from the additional devs that are stepping in anonymously to protect themselves from Zoe trying to destroy them too, and, discredit them and hide this information, we are now at the point where it's undeniable. This bitch is guilty of sin. Like, the courts need to do something. They need to investigate this. They need to subpoena her account, actually put her ass in a fucking federal court circuit system, bump that shit up to the Supreme Court, and make a decision and ruling that makes this shit illegal. Because that's the reason she hasn't been brought to justice. She hasn't been brought to justice because people protect her. Either the guys she's fucking and trading sexual favors for political expedient, lucrative business are protecting her, or these guys are just rolling over and taking it. Because there's no way that a person like Zoe can always be the victim in a situation where she inserts herself into these situations. Either she has a chemical imbalance that makes her like this and she just needs to get help, which I'm all for. Give her some help, inter her, put her in and make her committed. If you get her committed, she gets some help, and we can help fix her and make her an upstanding citizen of society who's willing to stand the slings and arrows that she sends out. That's one thing. But it's more than likely that she's being protected by other women who know that she's doing this and don't want them to be on her fucking chopping block. Because the fact that she's been flirting with women and men, and has been obviously fucking women and men, means that we know for a fact that she's been doing this all the way back then. So she's just doing what she's always done. And now she's in hiding because she didn't expect it to fail so badly. Like, the evidence that the photographer has, she posted in her Facebook post, which has been archived. If you need that archive, again, link below. In that archive, she shows one of the many pictures that she has and that she took. I looked at the picture of her and the lady and the roommate, and it's very obvious that this roommate was 100% up Zoe's fucking alley. I have no doubt in my mind that they were banging. Either they were banging or they were fooling around with the boyfriend that she was with there in 2007. Because the dates correlate together and it all goes together. It all paints a pretty picture, and that pretty picture is call the police. Outside of that, the only thing we can really do is just keep sharing around the information. That's all we can do. Share the information, inform people who don't already know, and every single time somebody like Rami Ismaili decides to say some stupid ass shit to defend them, just put their article in their face until they block you. And then make sure you repost it to places where it can be seen. Make sure that everybody hears about it. No one should not be aware. You do that, and we stand a chance to hopefully get some goddamn justice this time around. That's the best we can hope for. Hopefully the court case, if a court case gets done, you know, if his sister comes around to her senses, or if somebody on Hawalka's behalf, if the police in the area of where she currently lives does something, if they look into it and they make the attempt, we should support them and ensure that justice is done. Because Hawalka deserves it, we deserve it, the games industry deserves it, and ultimately, all consumers deserve it. Because this isn't something that you can just say, oh, well, just these angry misogynists want this. No, people like very serious games journalist Ian Hamilton and Error Justin of IGN should fucking want this. You should want to make sure you expunge as many fucking pests like her from your communities as possible. Otherwise, what are you actually doing? Other than ensuring she gets away with it. She shouldn't be allowed to get away with it. The only reason she had is because y'all have been protecting her. If people like y'all take it upon yourselves to have some fucking balls and do something, we can get some shit done in here. Ultimately, that's my final say in my piece. This will stay up until I do a proper remake of that video and I go through everything again. That won't be until I have recording software and I get around to it. Thank you for watching, if you watched this far. And, yeah, make sure you share it around. Make sure everybody knows about it. Like, comment, favorite, subscribe, all that shit. Make sure you keep a hold of those archives. Make archives of the tweets themselves. Of my tweets. With the videos and with the pictures. Make sure you save those somewhere. Don't let this shit fall into the fucking cracks. Expose this woman. Good night, everybody. I'll see you guys next time.